Hey, thanks to Ori and everyone at AWE for having us here. I wanted to say welcome to the session. Our talk today is on the AR market opportunities, and we're going to be discussing sort of a wide variety of opportunities, what's going on with hardware, what's going on with software. And I realized I can't see some of the people over here. You're going to scoot my seat over. But first, just a brief introduction of myself and the panelists. I'm Blau. I'm a research VP at Gartner. Essentially, I'm a tech analyst, and I focus on a wide variety of consumer technologies, areas like social networks, video games, and of course, augmented reality. Am I supposed to use this one now? Oh, okay, maybe that's better. Technology is awesome. So what was I saying? Oh, a little bit about me. So I cover augmented reality and virtual reality, and in fact, it's something that I've been doing for a very long time. I put on my first VR headset in 1988 when I was a grad student at university. So it's something that's been a part of me for a long time, and I'm really passionate about. Listen, we have a really great lineup here today, but before we get started, I wanted to set the stage here and just to say that I think it's a pretty exciting time for augmented reality and other immersive technology, namely virtual reality. We're seeing a lot of quality come out in terms of devices, in terms of ecosystems being stood up, software, computer vision certainly is helping a lot today. But also, we really could think about 2016 as another start for immersive technology. I think that'll be part of the topic today. Where are we in the overall evolution of AR and VR? And it's folks like these here that are on the panel that I think are leading investments in the industry, that are leading product development in the industry, and I think it's going to be great to get some of their perspectives today. But before I introduce them, I just wanted to ask the audience, everybody that's here, I just really want to sort of get a sense of who's sitting here and who we're going to be talking to. I just wanted to ask, who here in the audience is here for AR business? That means supplying technology in AR or VR. Maybe just a raise of hands. I don't know if we can see everybody. Wow, that's quite a few. Who is here for content and apps? Who is a futurist and is here because this is pretty exciting tech? You're not ready, but maybe in the future. Less hands. Well, there's a lot of believers. I think that's pretty good. Okay, well, at least now we know the mindset of the audience that's here. And with that, just I'm going to run through the names here, but we're going to let everybody introduce themselves. Sitting next to me, I have Tish, Shute. We have Tim Merel, then Matt Miesnieks, and Tim Chang. So if we could just go down, just say a little bit about yourself and what you do, your relationship to AR, VR.
Oh, okay. I'm Tish Shute, and currently I'm Director of Technology Planning, AR and VR for corporate strategy at Huawei. But today I'm going to be representing Augmented World Expo. My role is really co-founder of this event, although you don't see me much because I've been so busy, but seeing this space evolve over the last 7 years. So I'll be giving my opinions as co-founder of Augmented World Expo, not as the corporate strategist team for Huawei, so just so you know that.
I'm Tim Merel. I'm founder and CEO of Eyetouch Reality, where we're developing a mobile social VR and AR consumer software platform, and Digi Capital, which is sell-side and buy-side M&A investment banking for AR and VR. Two shameless plugs. At Eyetouch Reality, we're hiring rockstar engineers, so if you're a rockstar engineer, come and talk to me. And Digi Capital, to celebrate AWE, we're giving everyone in the room a 25% discount on our augmented and virtual reality report this week, so go and buy it. Thank you.
Matt Miesnieks, a partner at Superventures. We do very early stage investment into AR startups and startups that enable the whole ecosystem around AR. And prior to Superventures, which is a new fund, I was doing AR product research at Samsung and founded a couple of AR startups before that.
Hello, I'm Tim Chang, one of the managing directors of Mayfield Fund. We're an early stage venture capital firm based here in Silicon Valley. We focus on Series A and B deals. I primarily lead the consumer and mobile investments, and that includes new platforms like wearables, drones, AR and VR. My interest in this stems from many years in gaming, and so that was one logical extension, but these days seeing a lot more opportunities even in enterprise applications, healthcare applications, therapy, etc., using AR and VR, which we hadn't expected.
Great. So I think, as you can see, we've got a great set of panelists here, and I'm just going to dive in right to our first question, and it's actually for Tim Chang, for you. Okay. So when you're looking at investments for hardware or content, and you can pick one or the other, what are the characteristics that make any one particular opportunity stand out over the others?
Absolutely. For hardware deals, of course, you want an experienced team, if possible, particularly if they're rolling it out to enterprise. For enterprise, a lot of that has to do with understanding the sales and distribution channels. And it's harder for 20-something Y Combinator first-time founders to sort of learn those quickly, as opposed to folks who might come out of enterprise hardware, infrastructure, sales teams, et cetera. On the consumer side, the founders do tend to be younger because they are new platforms, but we like to see executive teams that have history of bringing consumer electronics devices to market, especially on the retail distribution, business development side, sales and marketing side, product marketing side. Those are pretty critical. Business model I look for, when impossible, signs that this can be a community and a platform with a full-on developer ecosystem. And even better, the holy grail of business models to me is device as a service, not just selling hardware gadgets, but products that have a built-in recurring or subscription business model. The thing I fear the most, you might have a hit gadget, but it's only good until the next Christmas season. Then you got to launch Rev 2, raise another $30 million for that. So it's almost like you're constantly, on the hook to deliver another hit product, which is the same as a game studio, actually. So.
Very interesting. Hey, I'm going to ask a follow-up to that. So you talked a lot about sort of business conditions for success. Maybe you could think about something about the immersive part of these devices. Is there any one thing particularly you look for there as part of your investment strategy?
Yeah, something we've been looking for in the immersive part is it a brand new behavior, meaning new behavior change, new training, or are you latching on to existing workflows, existing work processes out there that people spend money on and just making it better? Sometimes it's easier to insert into an existing workflow, like for example, field service or factory line repair or things like that, as opposed to, hey, here's a brand new way to do, kind of like marketing presentations or something, which would require new behavior shifts.
Interesting. So you're almost advocating for an incremental approach to building the business and the market.
Or at least sort of a known pain point that people would really welcome a more immersive, solution for that.
So Matt, I'm actually going to ask you the same question. I don't know if you can field this, but since Tim answered on hardware, could you maybe tackle the software piece of this?
Sure.
So what makes content or an app interesting for investment? What makes it stand out?
Yeah, well, it's slightly different to Tim in that we're a smaller fund and we invest a lot earlier in the life cycle of a startup. We are ideally looking for founders with an idea or a working prototype, and hopefully we can be the first money, the first check that they receive, and we can help that team get their product built and get some of their first customers in the door. So on the software side, in AR in particular, it's quite tricky because obviously software depends on hardware to run on top of, and there isn't a winning AR hardware platform out there today. So we look at software in a couple of niches. Either you have solved a very, very hard technical problem, something like a computer vision algorithm or some new type of input technology that could plug into someone's hardware down the road, or we look for like a vertical solution where you've built some software that might automate a factory process or a process in a hospital, and you can sell your software along with the hardware and services around that to actually have a business from day one. So
you wanted to add something?
Yeah, well, I think there's another broader piece which cuts across both hardware and software, and that's the question of survival. If you're thinking about how you're trying to raise funds and where you're focused, the long term, where AR and VR are going long term, is fantastic. It's all up and to the right. But the next 2 years, while the market is scaling, you need a way that you can actually make money so you can survive, so you're not having to come to VCs and raising huge amounts of capital. And so if you're trying to solve for what you're doing, solve for X plus AR and VR, not AR and VR plus X. Now, it's to be great at something that's horizontal, that cuts across a market where you can make money, that happens to express itself in AR and VR, where you're going to be able to dominate long term, but have a way that you can actually make money in the next 2 years while the market's relatively small.
Very interesting. So look for return right away if 2 years is right away.
You need a combination of long-term potential for dominance in a big sector within AR and VR, but also the way to survive for the next 2 years and actually make some money. So I'll give you a simple example out of the VR world. Pick, say, Penrose Studios. These guys are ex-Pixar. They've just raised an 8 million seed round, which is pretty solid for a seed round. The reason why they were invested in was not just the quality of what they're doing, but they know Hollywood cold. They've got the relationships cold. So if you look at where the money is in terms of, say, Hollywood, it's not in the studio budgets, it's in the marketing budgets. These guys can pull in $500,000, $1 million projects easy from a lot of different films, studios, artists, and they can make money, good, solid money, for the next couple of years as the consumer market they're ultimately aiming at gets there.
Very interesting. So I'm going to... Do you want to add one more thing? Sure,
Just
go ahead.
one little comment on if you want to work across hardware and software, which a lot of things in this space require thinking across hardware and software. If you are willing to go and spend 3 months in Shenzhen in an incubator there, you will come back a new person, and you will know all kinds of things about hardware and software that you don't know now. So I've seen a few startups do that, and it's quite miraculous. They're not the same team that came back that went out. So it's very easy to do. There's a lot of incubators wanting to do exchanges and things like that.
I also think there has to be a lot more cross-pollination going back and forth between Asia and the Western world. We don't have enough of it today, and I think that we all could learn something from our partners there, and I'm actually planning my next trip to China here coming up soon. So.
Well, also from a funding point of view, when you look at the different stages, for seed and Series A, there's actually quite a lot of money washing around in America. When you get to Series B, because this is such an early stage market, where normally Series B you want revenue traction, which is pretty hard to come by at this stage, then what the best funds are doing is they're advising folks from here to go and look to China, look to Japan, look to South Korea, look to strategics who are a bit more flexible when it comes to what's going on. And there's so much money, particularly from the Chinese market, that's looking for a home in relation to AR and VR, both domestically in China, but also in the US. So again, if you're thinking about the investment side, looking to China, spending time there, building relationships there is a really worthwhile effort.
Great. I'm going to ask another question here. It's slightly related. I'm going to send this one to you, Tish. So the first round of devices, so VR is a little bit more advanced than AR, and I'm just going to call it right here. I'll say the AR devices are mostly immature, right? If we can all believe that, or if you can believe that for this question, when do you see the next state of devices coming? Will the next sort of round of churn of devices, will that be the mature level? How many more will there be? Or sort of give us your take on thinking about the future of the devices as a component of the overall market.
Right. Well, number one, for there to be a mass market, consumer market for AR, that absolutely has to be a light, low cost, low power, natural looking, high fidelity display. There's no way around that. Luckily, when we first talked about this, when we set up this event in 2010, no one really had a clue how that would come about. Now many, many people know how this will come about, which means it will come about from somewhere. So that's really good news. And it's really, I probably didn't do the whole list. There's a list of requirements there, and you can't miss on any of them. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is, you're saying, well, just, do you want to hear the second half of the...
Please go.
Yeah.
Keep
Second
going.
half of the reply is that the second thing that changed from 2010, if you, hands up anyone who was here in 2010. A few, right? And of course, all we could talk about was holding up your phones. That was all we could talk about. And we didn't really have good ideas of how the eyewear came. But something else big, really big, and I don't know whether the right date would be 2011, but basically around 2011, we had this huge, massive breakthrough in computer science with artificial intelligence, machine learning, whatever you like to call it, deep nets. This is about as big as it could be. And it will affect AR and how these displays sort of manifest. And you're saying, when will this become huge?
So can you give us a year of when you think it will happen?
Well,
you can guess. We're all in the guessing game here.
Well,
2020? 2025?
Well, you always, I mean, if you say anything over 5 years, it's absolutely pointless. And it could be done. I mean, I feel it's technically possible to be done in 2 years, but likely to be done in 3+.
3+. There you go.
Yeah.
Question for Tim. So when you think back about all of your investments and try to focus on sort of immersive technology or related, what's been your most successful? Or maybe you can sort of talk about the area that's been most successful for you.
Couple areas, I guess. On early wearables, I helped to co-found and fund a company called Basis, which was one of the first wearables that did continuous heart rate. Had Intel acquire them for more than 100 million, so that was a pretty nice start. Back then, the term wearables wasn't even around, and the big question I used to get was, who's going to wear something on their wrist to look at body signals? And now it's pretty common. But you know, a good lesson from that was also when you're trying to build advanced products, and you know, you put the whole kitchen sink in the spec. That can lead to challenges in manufacturing, especially for startups, right? Especially if you're trying to get them manufactured in Taiwan, et cetera. When markets are early, sometimes simpler form factors win. And you saw that play out. Fitbit was much simpler at the time, but in many ways easier to get to market. And so, you know, you could argue that the basis was potentially even over-engineered from the start, right? And so that's something to look out for VR, AR headsets, particularly if you're a startup. Are you over-engineering, trying to make it too fancy? It's really tough because it's a moving target. You know your manufacturing dates might be a good year or 18 months out, so you want to hit the market with something that stands out, and you're playing against massive giants out there, right? So it's a tricky balance to do as a startup.
It is tricky. There's nothing simple or easy about AR, VR necessarily. So how do you balance the simpleness and ease of use with sophisticated tech?
So for VR specifically, I'm viewing that more as a consumer technology for now, although there have been some really interesting business applications. I'm a big fan of what Vivid Vision is doing to solve like lazy eye and ocular disorders with VR. I've seen some interesting use cases to address PTSD and other, you know, kind of therapy type uses that weren't straight out consumer. AR tends to be more, actually, I think, an enterprise market for today, at least in terms of the checks being written. These are from the Toyotas or the Hondas of the world for very specific one-off applications for field service and others. But hey, at least those could be 5-6-figure purchase orders. Sure. I don't know how repeatable they are, but the point is at least there's some revenue coming in the door.
All right, so I'm going to ask Matt maybe the opposite of this question. This will be maybe feedback for somebody here in the audience, but what would you never invest in from an AR standpoint? When you get pitched something, you never will do it.
Yeah, I'd say what I never invest in today, because things definitely change over time. But
certainly,
areas that sort of make me very nervous as an investor right now would be investing in a company that depends on having a large number of users or a large audience in order to be a viable business. You know, content and media companies, some games, those type of things. I just think there's a huge risk in that if you take a check to give yourself 2 years worth of runway, I'm not really confident that 2 years out there'll be a big market there for whatever it is that you're building. And on the flip side, I would be very nervous about someone who came to me and said, hey, we're a startup and we're going to build the competitor to HoloLens. And build the AR smart glasses for, you know, a lot of the reasons Tim said. You know, Microsoft spent over $1 billion, you know, building that product over about a 5 or 6 year period. And if you came to me and said we can do it for like 500 grand, you know, I'd be pretty skeptical of that.
Interesting. So I'm going to follow up with you, and maybe anybody can grab this. But it's this question about ecosystems. So ecosystems we know as business that provides hardware, software, platform, APIs, maybe an operating system, maybe some content and distribution. If we define that as an ecosystem, to be successful as an AR technology supplier, does it have to be an ecosystem or platform?
Yeah, I think so.
Everybody? Yes? Is there any that Tim is looking at me? Do you
Eventually,
disagree?
I do think you have to, your first purchase orders might be these one-off kind of custom development projects just to, like Tim was saying here, get some revenue in the door first. Problem is those don't scale super well per se. Eventually you need that ecosystem play, like Matt's saying, because you need third-party developers creating plugins, APIs, mods, all those other bits that you'll never have enough developers in-house to do.
And I think that comes back to the point you were asking Tish about earlier, which is basically what's the inflection point? What do you need to have actually have the whole thing really take off? And I think building on what Tish was saying, as well as the hardware being light having all-day battery life because the power's low. You need cellular capability built in so you can have data and voice, and I mean voice with mobile quality of service, not voice over IP. You need an app ecosystem that is as good as mobile. And you also need the telcos to be able to cross-subsidize, because at the end of the day, the inflection point's going to come when smart glasses can start to replace smartphones. But even if you look, say, 5 years out, even regardless of what sort of scale you're thinking about, you might be talking about a market in the low single-digit hundreds of millions of installed base, from cardboard all the way up to Magic Leap. And that's a Tesla market. What I mean is, if you look at the number of Teslas in the Bay Area, there are lots of them. If you go to Idaho, you don't see any. So if you've got a few 100 million units of smart glasses, VR glasses, versus what will by then be 6 billion smartphones, it'll grow really quickly, it'll get big, but it'll still be a long time before it actually surpasses smartphones. That'll take a lot longer.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Tish?
Yeah, I sometimes like to say it's like a triad. You've got to have the device, you've got to have the experience, and you've got to have the network for AR. It just doesn't happen otherwise. And I think what Tim was saying, I mean, because I'm assuming it's an audience of many people already involved with AR, that you really do have to start your mini ecosystem now and have a way to build and understand what you're doing with the niche markets that will wear current devices. There are many devices that are very good for enterprise right now. They're just not consumer mass market. There's nothing wrong with them. Therefore, you can actually see how these problems of device and experience network have to fit together in a niche market. And you can that understanding will mean that, and it could happen quite suddenly, because we are several billions of dollars in, if you look across all of the big players, investing in eyewear and what's to come. It could happen quite suddenly. So if you are working in enterprise on one of the current available eyewear that people can use, you will actually have this understanding of how device, experience, and network and intelligence. I would add another thing. There's the technologies that of machine intelligence are absolutely vital. If you can bring that to your enterprise app, that's the heart of AR. The eyewear is just something we've got to get over and get. You just need that device. It's not like anything else, but the intelligence is everything. So build an app that's personalized and intelligent for the current eyewear.
I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to ask another question here that's going to relate directly to that, but I'm going to change the format a little bit. So I told the panelists about this on the way over here, so I'm going to do a lightning round. I'm going to do a couple of questions, and everybody's going to go down the line and give a short answer, and just do it off the top of your head. I'm doing this because I want to give the audience here really what you really are thinking about what's going on. Everybody here has got a lot of experience, and I think we're going to, by this little session here, we're going to try to impart some of that to the guests here today. First question: what's the best augmented reality app that you've experienced recently? Tish.
That I've experienced, okay. Actually, I have to say, because I'm a nervous sailor, I liked the sailing, how to find out where the water's really shallow. And it was a very early app that I saw at a meetup, but actually would have quite liked that app.
That's nice. I mean,
on
listen,
my boat that I don't have.
It can save your boat. I mean, it's pretty useful, right?
Exactly. I've just moved near the water.
We're building it at Eyetouch Reality, but we're in stealth, so I can't tell you.
Oh, come on. You have to give.
No, I really can't.
All right. What's the second coolest one then? Or one you can say publicly? You have to give an answer. You're not going to get out of it. So, cool AR app you've seen.
I'll answer it differently. Mobile social, taking the friction out of the system, requiring people to spend 5 or 10 minutes is too hard. AR for the lazy, VR for the lazy, that's what's exciting.
Okay. Matt?
The 3D holograms through a HoloLens.
HoloLens holograms. Pretty cool. Tim?
The wide field of view demos from Meta, and then also some of the everyday office and workflow collaboration tools from Athere, I think have been pretty good.
Very interesting. I think what you saw here was exactly the apps that everybody here should go out and build. If they're cool on this panel, that means they're cool for everybody. Next one, and it's related to one of the questions I asked early on, and just in a few words, name the next app that you're going to build or invest in. You know, not that brand name, but I'm going to build a shopping AR app, or I'm going to build the next app that'll fix my train car. Tish?
Oh, I mean,
Short answer.
Okay, short answer. It's got to be this personalization. That's
Personalization.
absolutely. Give me an app that tells me more about me and helps me grow as a person. That's what I want.
Tim?
Mobile social is something which enables real people to build real relationships, not things which isolate people.
Matt?
I'd love to see Skype for AR or VR.
Skype for AR, VR. A little video collaboration.
I'm looking for personalities for these machine interfaces, like her or Jarvis from Iron Man. So I'm looking specifically for these anthropomorphization interfaces.
Little avatar going on in your VR world, your AR world.
Yeah, you'll probably like your device better if it makes fun of you every once in a while.
What do you want your avatar to look like then?
Oh, Scarlett Johansson's not a bad choice. But,
Yeah, nice.
but that's the point, is people will choose their avatar personas just like ringtones.
Yeah, I think you're right. Okay, so back to a little longer form question. I see we don't have that much time left, but I did want to ask about this one thing. I get asked all the time about what's going on in the market, what are the conditions, but they form it in this question. They say trigger points, right? They say, Brian, what's going on in the market? Tell me the trigger points to watch for. So if anybody wants to grab this, what do you think are key trigger points that the audience here can watch for? Maybe Tim, maybe you want to take that one?
I come back to what we were talking about before. It's that combination of an elegant, lightweight device with all-day battery life, with cellular capability, with an app ecosystem that is as good as mobile, and particularly with the telcos subsidizing it because they can make data revenues as a way of bringing the price down to where consumers can afford it.
So that was 4 trigger points. It was battery, was so improvements in battery, was ecosystem, was a few other things.
It's basically an Apple-quality device is what you want.
You want a hero device.
Yes.
That's what you think is going to be the trigger point.
I've got 2. One is easily accessible machine vision that's accurate. You know, once it's as accessible as like a Google search type of thing you can plug in. The second is AI and chat bots that can be plugged in with AR as just the interface layer. So actually the big trigger point is as AI and chat bots evolve.
I'm looking for a very natural input system that doesn't need holding or wearing or anything. Just put
So
the glasses
natural
on.
UI, so advancement in UI.
Input in
Or
particular.
input. Very interesting. All right, so with that, I think that we're just going to close things up because we only have a few more seconds left. I wanted to say thank you to all the panelists. This was great. Unfortunately, I don't think we're able to take any questions from the audience, but I'd love to have everyone come up. I think there's a break after us, so feel free to come up and chat with us. But thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.